So this is our very first episode of our podcast.
It's exciting.
We actually recorded it.
We did it. Go team.
How long have we been talking about?
Well, you've been talking about it for years.
Years, yeah. I honestly, I don't think for a first podcast it couldn't have gone better.
It was great. Yeah.
I'm
excited for people in general to listen to it, but especially people who have an interest in songwriting. Ryan does such an amazing job in this podcast of giving quantifiable, specific things to do as part of the creative process. Like even, like my creative process is super different as a photographer, but I took so much from what he said, even to use for my very different, creative process, which is great.
Yeah, it's just so good. So Ryan and I met back in 1998. Around then, I was working with a youth group up in Running Springs. I was in my early 20s, and I think Ryan was about 18, a couple years younger, and he had been working with the youth group. And I stepped in, and him and I were hanging out every day, working together. He played in a punk band there in Running Springs called One Side, and we were throwing concerts, and we'd move all the pews out of the church, and there's mosh pit and stage diving, and
in the middle of like a super conservative church in Running Springs.
But we instantly became super tight, good friends, and were able to do that for a few years, and then I moved. I came down the mountain, and then I moved out to North Carolina, but so great to reconnect and get in touch. But like you said, just hearing the creative process, because that's really what we want this podcast to be, is to find someone from the Southern California area that has created something. And what did that process look like? How did that process start when you were a kid? What got you into it? How did you develop it? What were, he talks about key relationships with his mom and his grandmother, and when he was first given a guitar and someone showed him, what to do. So just going through that whole process to see then where he is now and to hear his music, just really cool.
Yeah.
So stick around till the end. Actually didn't have it planned, but he asked if he actually played a song.
Our favorite song.
Our favorite song of his, actually played it. So stick around to the end, and he actually plays it live, and it just sounded incredible. So here's our first podcast with Ryan Clair.
This is the Create Podcast.
Can you hear us?
All right, now I hear you.
So how's it going?
Going good.
I like your shirt.
Thanks. So I'm a part of, it's actually the first time I've ever been a part of like a fan club. And it's one of my favorite artists, Coulter Wall. And so it's the Folk Singers Union is the fan club for Coulter Wall.
Oh, nice. Cool. I'll have to check him out.
It's a very Mark Menezes shirt.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
It's a very Mark Menezes style shirt, yeah.
It fits, yeah.
Real simple approach.
Yep. Black, it's just simple.
Mm-hmm. You have a lot of similarities in taste.
Yeah.
True.
But thanks for jumping on and very first episode. Couldn't think of a better guest.
Thanks, man.
I know we've obviously Facebook's been great. We've been able to chat through there. But gosh, it was 98, 99 the last time we saw each other in person.
I know, that's crazy. Yeah, last time I remember, the actual last time I saw you was when you lived across from Bible College. Yeah, and we played that night, and after the show, we went by to see you.
Yep, I remember that. That was a great show too.
It was like late at night, and your babies were sleeping.
Yeah,
and we're all like whispering, "Hey, man, good to see you."
You guys, that was One Side, right? The band.
Yeah, that was One Side. We played in the cafe that night.
Yeah, you guys had like the best stage presence of, like, I could put you up there with any band I've ever seen.
Always so entertaining. That was our big, really our big thing, was how entertaining can we get, like with, so At the Drive-In was one of our huge inspirations, because they would put on an amazing show as well. Yeah. And so Ricky was just nuts with his long hair and his wireless bass, just spinning circles.
Yeah, I remember he drank a bunch of water right before you guys started, and then he held it in his mouth, and he held it probably like 30, 45 seconds as you guys were jumping into the first song, and then he like spins around and spits it out as he's spinning, goes flying everywhere.
It was funny to think of looking back at how many churches I've spit water in. It's pretty bad now thinking about it.
I think you can put that on your LinkedIn as a skill set. Yeah.
Spitting on altars nationwide.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I'll
sound very good.
I'll definitely confirm that one.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Quite a bit.
Definitely want to just kind of talk through, your musical journey and obviously where you're at now, what you're doing now, but kind of go back to how it started, how music first started for you, and what that process has looked like for you, especially in songwriting, because you're such a great songwriter, able to just tell a great story. We're super thankful, obviously, using a couple of your songs in our vlogs. They just fit so perfect and just so much emotion behind it and just so real and genuine. But I get just right now, and then we'll go back, but right now just kind of catch us up to where you are now with your music and the label you're on and what that looks like.
Yeah, so after taking really a 8-year hiatus from songwriting and doing music, I also felt like I was just having a major songwriter's block and focusing on a family. But the last really 3 years have been solid. And I went to a worship school that really focused on songwriting. And so that's what got me back into it. It really inspired me to get back into songwriting. And also it was a lot of confirmation during that time, because when you can be your biggest critic and hard on yourself. And so when I write music, it doesn't always feel like it's finished or even something somebody would want to listen to. So to be able to go to a school, and my very first songwriting task or session, I had a Grammy Award winning songwriter come in and say, "You don't need my help." That it just was mind blowing and just very encouraging. So I think it really sparked something within me that I knew I loved doing, but had just put off because I was such a critic of myself. And so hearing those words, not just from him, but from a few others too, that were just amazing songwriters that I looked up to. And so to hear those words just really set me on a trajectory to start writing again.
Yeah.
And, I had run a forum online of a bunch of, songwriters, worship leaders, people who are, in the more of the Christian based worship world, I guess. But I met a guy there who wrote music similar to what I do. And I'm like, man, I really love what you do. And we became fast friends. And he was looking for some shows to do. So I invited him out to Minnesota when I lived there. And this guy is really what started me off with getting back into playing and doing shows again. So I invited him out and I said, you know what? If I'm going to have you out, I think I might open the show for you. And he's like, no, man, you're headlining. This is your place, your territory. And so I ended up headlining, and it was great. We had almost 400 people there. And wow. It was the first time I played in 8 years in front of people doing my own music.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it's been that long.
Yeah. I really put it off for a long time and was focusing more so on my career and my family. And so, and we can speak more into the family stuff a little bit, but so that having him come out, do that concert, and then he filmed a portion of it and sent it to his producer. His name's Chris Hoisington, and he's out of Batavia, New York. And he's also he's one of the brothers of Brothers McClurg. They're pretty well-known artists that were signed to Integrity back in the day, but they're out in Buffalo, New York. So him and his brother, Chris Hoisington, and Anthony Hoisington are the kind of the owners of Old Bear Records. And so when they caught wind of a song that I did, it's called I Want Jesus to Walk With Me. It's an old song from the 1800s that I had wrote music to, reworked it, wrote a chorus and a bridge, and just kind of made it my own. When he heard that, they were like, dude, we want to get you out to the studio. So he called me and said they'd love to get me out to the studio to record and just to see what I thought of the studio and the process and him as a producer. And it was super cool. Like the vibe there, like it's like no other. It's this old like 1800s building which fit the song because it's an old song, old vibe, overlooking this like massive, beautiful cemetery. And so it was just a really interesting vibe. And then so we had driven from Minnesota to there. It was about 17 hours, and just a really beautiful drive. Everything about it just felt so like just good. And so after recording the song, they were like, dude, we really loved recording with you, and really loved the song, and offered me a recording contract with them.
Yeah.
We were, a little nervous because I didn't want to be tied down to something, and didn't know what that entirely meant to be a part of a label. One side, my old band back in the day was signed to an independent label as well. And so that one really went nowhere. And
yeah, wasn't that Hazmat Records?
that was Hazmat Records. And we lost a lot of, we lost all of our CDs that we didn't sell. I don't even know where they went. I would love to have them now. And I think they would actually sell again if I did have them. So it was really a waste. And so it's unfortunate. So I had a little bit of worries going into being part of a label again and what that meant. But Old Bear Records is really, it's more of a community of artists. And we all almost are employees for the label too. So we support each other. We're always, doing shout outs for each other and promoting one another. And it really is, it's like community over competition is our hashtag, so
I love that.
doing the best we can to help each other out. We're getting each other shows at our churches or places we've played, recommending our fellow artists to other venues. And so that it was really ideal. And we own the rights to our music. There's some ownership on their side, but it's more so, just an agreement saying, hey, we're not going to do you wrong.
Right.
So
Cool.
it's really a brotherhood. And so I can't think of a better label to be a part of for what I'm doing.
It's super obvious. I mean, because we reconnected through Facebook before that happened. I think years have gone by where we haven't connected. We reconnected. So it's been cool to watch the progression through Facebook, and I followed some of the other bands on there, and it's so obvious that it's a community of friends and people, working together. I couldn't think of a better fit. It's obviously a perfect fit for you and the music you're doing.
I'm glad that it's noticeable that, that community aspect, and just, it is great. It's a great label. I recorded my first record pretty quickly after that single. So I recorded that in May and came back in September and recorded the full length album called Less Traveled Road. And that released in 2018. And so that was mostly songs that I had written while I was in college doing that songwriting with 10,000 Fathers worship school. And I was really finding my voice during that time, and I've always loved folk music. Really, since I moved to the Midwest is where I was like, man, I just love folk music. There's such a storytelling vibe to it, an honesty, and you get a real sense of just a purity of, who the artist is. And so I wanted to stick with that. I didn't want to write cliche, congregational corporate songs for other people. I wanted to write songs that told my story. And if somebody can relate to it along the way, that's a win for me.
So when did, for you, late 90s, we were working together at Up and Running Springs, working with the youth group up there. And you had just graduated, right? I think you had just graduated that year before.
That was some weird years, actually. So because I dropped out of school in 10th grade. And then I was probably during that time, because 99 is when I actually graduated. So, but that was from like an adult education program. And that was working through high school credits to actually get a diploma. Yeah. And so, because I had a pretty rebellious early, high school, junior high time where I didn't care about anything, just loved punk rock music and wanted to snowboard and skateboard every single day. And I had a few friends along the way that were homeschooled, and their parents were like fully supportive of their hobbies. And my mom was just, she's like, you got to go to school, do that. And she definitely didn't want to homeschool me. So I decided by 10th grade I had enough, and I was like, I'm going snowboarding. And so I just didn't go back. I just kept going snowboarding every single day. And thought that originally I thought that's what my profession would end up being was snowboarding. So but music along that same time was so passionate and so into it.
So when did it start? Because I know you played with your brother as well. You guys had a band, and I mean, I remember seeing pictures that you guys were like barely old enough to walk.
Yeah.
So how did it start?
Growing up, I remember getting a few records, actual vinyl records. One of them was Michael Jackson, Thriller. I think the other one was like Boston. Total opposites. Yeah. But we would blast those in the living room of my house. I was probably 7 years old. And I remember just going, the vibe that I got from it, from music in general, was always so like, it took me to another place because we were pretty poor. We had a pretty rough upbringing. My mom had me at 16 years old. And so we lived with my grandmother for a while. We were definitely on welfare and getting by borrowing and begging for rides places. And I just remember all that growing up. I remember our very first car she got was like a Ford Pinto or whatever they are with a red interior. And we would blast 80s music, and so I still have a really strong connection to a lot of the 80s music. I think I just released like a playlist the other day of like all my old favorites. Yeah. But yeah, during that time was where I really sensed and felt a love for music. And so my brothers and I would always get together and we'd play band, where we had set up like an actual stage, and I had a Casio keyboard guitar. And so I didn't know anything. I didn't have anybody in my family that could teach me. But I had a friend along the way. I got my first electric guitar at 12. I had a friend show me a power chord once, the one chord you need to write punk rock music.
Use this right here.
Yeah. He said, here's all you need, man. Go up and down the neck. And I was like, all right. So I got that chord down, and I wasn't good enough to figure out other people's music. So I just started writing my own songs, and they were simple, just straight up, just da 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 da, straight down strumming and writing songs about girls and skaters and jocks and all the high school drama stuff.
Yeah. During that time, who were some of your biggest influences?
Oh man, so I think ninth grade is really where I was introduced to obviously Green Day was there. That was the more commercial side of punk rock. But then I had a friend who showed me Guttermouth and Dead Kennedys. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is like, this is real punk rock. And I've always had a passion for finding new music and being the guy that knew about an artist that somebody else didn't, and being able to say, hey, have you heard of this guy? And so that's always been a real passion for me is finding the new artist or who's maybe somebody hasn't heard of. So so I mean, it's from there, just hundreds and hundreds of punk rock artists from there that I was really influenced by. And so we started off more, I was in a band called the Milk Crates with a couple of my friends. That was my very first band. We practiced in an old shed, and we did one cover song of Beatles, a song, what was it? I forget. But it was close your eyes and I'll kiss you tomorrow. We did all punk rock style.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But and then not soon after, that's when James got a bass, my brother, and he was jamming with this guy, Mike Flamé, and they were just by themselves, just rocking out. And I was like, dude, that looks kind of fun, and I liked the style that they were coming up with. It was a little more dirty, a little more just straight up punk rock music. And so the other guys I was playing with were more talented. And so they were like playing blues stuff. And I'm over here with my power chords doing like, I don't know what to do.
It's the best way to learn though.
Yeah. So I digressed in my musicians. Like I went from playing with pretty good musicians to my brother and this other guy who just were like,
just pounding it out.
Yeah. So
was James younger than you?
Yeah, James is a couple years younger. I'm the oldest of my mom had 2 or 3 kids, and I have another brother from my dad. But yeah, we have different dads, me and James. But grew up together. He's a phenomenal musician. That kid, man. He's plays guitar way better than me. Plays bass like nobody's business, and so yeah, he's incredible. And he got really, really, really good along our years of doing music together.
So from the beginning, once you started playing with bands, it seems like writing songs was just something you stepped right into. Were you pretty much the different bands you played in always writing most of the music?
Yeah, it was kind of like that was my thing, mostly because I wasn't good enough to figure out other people's music, and I felt like I had something to say. I love the creativity of writing my own music and telling the story of who and where I was in life. And so that came natural. And I have that leadership kind of mentality too, to where every band I've ever been a part of, I was automatically almost a leader.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we met up in Running Springs, that's obviously a small community, and everybody seemed to look to you for whether it was music or whatever, skating or whatever it was. Like you said, it was just a natural thing. Everyone looked at what's Ryan doing right now. What's he up to?
I was always a few years older than all my friends too. I seemed to gravitate, maybe because it was like I don't know if it's because of dropping out of school or what, but I tend to hang out with people that were my brother's age, and so I was kind of the Papa Bear.
Yeah.
Although I was as skinny as ever back then.
We all were.
I'm always curious to hear about kind of the writing process for people, because everyone is a little bit different. Is it like, what is your process? Like, are you starting with the melody or lyrics, and has that changed? Like, if what you started doing back in the day, have you just evolved from that, or did it change at any point?
Yeah, I think it's developed to more of a structured system now, but back then it was mostly starting out with, it's always different. You can be playing, all of a sudden you come up with a guitar riff and you're like, now I got to write a song around this. And then from there, you start writing a lyric that would match the style of the music, if you will. And so I forget what the word for that is. I learned that in college, but it's where everything's working together. And so I take that into account definitely now more than ever. And but a lot of times I would say it starts with writing lyrics and then writing music around the lyric that fits the, what's the song saying? Is it a sad song? Is it an angry song? Is it, just a song of comfort? We want that work to work together. So but yeah, there's a lot of times where I'm mostly just playing my guitar and I'll come up with a progression or something that just needs to be carried out and put into a song. So yeah, and then I think now more so than ever, I've been doing some co-writing with others. I always had a protective like I didn't want to write with others because I wanted to like have the full credit. Like I was worried like, there was going to be some kind of like, I don't know, battle in the future over who gets all the credit. So just lame, immature stuff like that I've grown more mature and understanding now, and also letting go, being a little bit more humble about it, and knowing that there's others out there that are better than you. And so that's been a huge humbling and renewing experience for me as a songwriter. So I write a lot with Anthony Hoisington from Brothers McClurg. He's also the main dude of Old Bear Records. So,
Okay.
So him and I write together almost once a week. So we've written 3 songs in the last month that we worked out. So I'm already on the trajectory of the next album. So we'll see. I'm thinking about every few years do a new album.
Mm-hmm. With One Side, when I left California, early 2000, 2001, I think you guys were still together, right? What ended up happening with One Side?
So One Side, that band, that was an interesting story. So I started playing with One Side because Duncan, their guitarist, broke his arm snowboarding. And they had a show with like Slick Shoes and Plank Eye at the Showcase Theater in Corona. And they did not.
Back then.
Yeah, I remember. Plank Eye Relocation, that album is so good.
That's great.
But yeah, so they were like, dude, can you fill in for Duncan? We can't miss the show. And so that's when I started playing with them. I played that show and I was like, dude, I love playing with you guys. Like they were just so much fun to be around. And so that band looked a little bit different than most of my other bands because they were already a band. And then here I come. And I remember Duncan was like all nervous. He's like, are they going to kick me out? And even kind of mad at me. Like, it's like almost like stepping on his toes, almost.
He's such a good dude.
Yeah, he was a great dude. And I promised him, I'm like, dude, I am not going to steal like this band from you. This is your band. I want to be a part of this with you guys. So, and at that time, my brother was kind of drifting away and, I kind of had his own group of friends. And so we had disbanded our band, You and I is what it was called. And so I joined up with the guys on One Side and we were together for quite a few years, probably like 3 or 4 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And it developed to where I took on that leadership role in a lot of ways, did a lot of the songwriting along with Ricky. Ricky Bender was the other. We had 2 vocalists in that band. So we'd swap parts and write together a lot, or we'd write a song and just bring it to the band and be like, all right, here's a song we got. And
yeah, that was such a good time.
Ricky and Brandon, this all just good guys.
Yeah. And that, like we talked about before we got started here, that band was so focused on like our stage show, how we can just really like draw in a crowd and put on the best show ever. So we were influenced by a lot of just the crazy bands like At the Drive-In. And
well, music was kind of going through a transition at that time with punk to emo. And you guys were kind of in the midst of that, man.
We were right on the cusp of, the Get Up Kids and, Elliot and all these emo bands that were coming out. And so that's
that Elliot album. So good.
I know it is so good. False Cathedrals. Amazing. Yeah. So that was, we were kind of right around that, still a little bit in the punk rock, the Get Up Kids were a good band that kind of balance between the two. So that was a big influence for us during that time. Also like Face to Face. And, they were a band that had a little bit more melodic style to them. So that was a big influence for us. And then Scott Soletta from Plank Eye, he started Fan Mail. I don't remember.
I remember that album came out right in the midst of that time when we were hanging out.
That album was so influential on us during our transition time into the more indie emo sound. And so, but those guys were all in Bible college at that time. And so, your question was what happened. They all decided that they wanted to study abroad and go to, I think Brandon went to England or something. And a few others went to Austria.
Oh, really? Wow.
And so everybody went and studied abroad, and we're like, I was kind of waiting for them to get back so we can get back to playing. And it just faded away at that point. There was no more getting together because they were gone for 6 months. So I started playing with another band and a group of guys from the high desert. And so we started a band called Record Player Radio. And that was probably, I would say, my favorite band I've ever been in, just because it was, I mean, there was so much talent there. My brother James joined up in that band as well and played electric guitar. And so just very, very like Coheed and Cambria influenced, Thrice. It was heavy, kind of indie slash post hardcore, I guess, with a lot of melodic influence like Alkaline Trio. And so, yeah, it was just a really fun band. We toured as much as we could, and we had an old beat up motorhome. We'd all ride in together and tow a trailer. So there's just so many good memories of touring up and down California, the coast, and Modesto, and kind of up in that region. So it was a lot of fun. And I played in that band for, that was probably my longest band, about 5 years or so.
Oh, wow.
I left the band twice after each kid I had during that time. I would quit, and then I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, sorry, honey, I got to go back to playing in a band. This is just not me. So I went a little stir crazy not being in a band. And
were you still in Running Springs when you guys met?
me and my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was living actually. So what was it? Maybe like right before I met you, I lived in the youth house at the church. So yeah, I moved home. No, I was living with my uncle. That's right. And so I had just gotten dumped by my fiance that I was engaged to, and I was just moping around. And my brother's like, "Dude, you got to go meet the new girl at the coffee house down in town." And I was like, "Nah," I put it off. And then one of his friends said, "If you don't, I will." And like, I was like, "Yeah, that's gross."
And that was the coffee house in Running Springs?
Yeah, I was like, all right, I'm going to save that girl from this guy going down there. And so I went down there, and it was really funny. It's just the way my wife talks about it and what she thought of me when she saw me. It was like total opposites, like she had never been around a guy like me. Because I had like back then black hair, like I colored my hair black, and my hair is like, it's blonde. But
Yeah.
And so yeah, so
probably covered half of your face.
My swoop bang emo hair and my jean jacket with all the buttons on it, and probably some like really lame sweater because back then it was like the Weezer era with lame sweaters. And she's like, "You look like that guy from the '70s show or whatever."
Which one?
Yeah, I don't know. Whoever had the mushroom hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I met her at that little coffee house,
and she was from Minnesota.
Yeah, she was from Minnesota. Her dad lived in Running Springs though, and
okay.
Yeah, her dad and mom divorced when she was like 7, and he moved west to California and started a business, and so she was out, just finished her teaching degree at Mankato State University in Minnesota. So she came out to California to become a teacher. And so when I met her and heard about that, and she also drove a brand new black Jetta, Volkswagen Jetta. Most of the girls that I ever went out with were driving like beat up Subarus and,
full hand-me-downs.
Yeah. And so to see her was like, it felt super like she was successful, had like a plan and a vision for her life. And it was totally different from what I wanted, it's like, but I really liked it. And it was something intriguing about it. So it really drew me to really like her. So within the first week, I was like, I want to marry you. Like we were talking about marriage like right away. So that was cool.
That's cool.
And I remember introducing her to my dad and my stepmom, and she ended up telling them, he's a keeper. And right then I was like, all right, we're getting married. So we did. We got married like pretty quick, engaged 6 months. I even tattooed her name on me myself. Like,
did you really?
Along the way, I wanted to be a tattoo artist. So I was always tattooing my legs and stuff, and tattooed her name on me and showed it to her. I think it freaked her out a little bit. And so we ended up getting married a year later.
And then you got married here and then moved out after?
Yeah, married. We lived in the high desert, Hesperia, for 5 years. She was teaching there. That's why we ended up there. She got a job in Hesperia. And about 5 years. We had 2 kids. And then we moved to Minnesota. We just got sick of the crime. Like, she was teaching in one of the most like ghetto school districts ever. I mean, it was bad. She had like 36 kids in her class, and only 10 of the kids would show up for their parent teacher conferences, and there's no care of how these kids are doing in school. And so it was really hard on her to just see that. And she had such a love for these kids. And so it was hard on her emotionally. And then our house, like, our mail was getting stolen from our mailbox, and paintball, cars broken into. And so we were just like, we had been to Minnesota a few times for family vacations. And I was like, man, if we ever move, I want to move to this area. And it was more northern Minnesota, which was pine trees, lakes, very, you know, the place that you want to go to get away for a weekend. And I told her when we were there for vacation that I wanted to, if we ever did move, let's move to that area. And so she was looking up homes immediately. And so it was pretty awesome. Like,
so what year was that when you guys moved to Minnesota?
that was 2007.
Okay.
It was between 2006, 2007 is when we were making that transition.
Is that about when you moved to Seattle?
I moved to Seattle in 1999.
Oh, that's right.
Originally, yeah.
But then you came back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Seattle again. Yeah.
And you guys are near Seattle now, right?
Yeah. We were in Minnesota for 11 years or so, and we've been here, and it's just north of Olympia. We're in a little town called Shelton.
Yep.
So
I know where that is.
it's right at the kind of the base of the Olympics, along the Hood Canal of the Puget Sound. It's a really beautiful area.
It is. I love it there.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. It's nice because you're about where we're located. We're like an hour and a half from the ocean, about an hour or so from Seattle, and so not too far from Mount Rainier. So it's just like a perfect central location for activity. And
as long as you can handle the rain. It's so much rain.
yeah, we got spoiled the first year with the best year. Like, people are like, it's not like this. Trust me. But
People are like, don't get used to this.
Yeah. And then winter hit, and it was the most snow they've ever seen here.
Yeah.
Like, we had like close to 3 feet of snow.
Wow.
And
That's
that
crazy.
was like unheard of here from what a lot of people tell me. And so that was kind of a shocker. We're like, we must have came with us from Minnesota.
I feel like we brought it with.
Yeah. So we got the blame quite a bit for that.
Yeah.
Have you been snowboarding in Washington?
Yeah, we've been to Crystal Mountain and Stevens Pass.
Very cool.
Yeah, so my kids, it's like, now if you ask my 10-year-old what you want to be when he grew up, he'll say pro snowboarder.
I love it.
So yeah, but it's a lot more expensive now than when I was a kid.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's like $200 I took 2 of my boys and myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
you gotta be kidding.
It's crazy.
What happened in my days, growing up in the mountains, we had hookups or,
Right.
or I worked for the snowboard park when I was growing up. So I didn't pay for those tickets. It was like, now it's just ridiculous.
It's crazy. Even buying a pass is crazy now.
Oh yeah, for same pass.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah. So I don't know if pro snowboarding's in his future, but more power to him. I'm hoping they follow me in music, and that's really our ultimate goal as a family, is that we would do some kind of family band,
That's
get
awesome.
an RV and tour. So
That's cool.
I would love that. I would definitely love to see them follow in those.
Do your kids play different instruments?
So I started out with my oldest 2, my daughter and my son, in piano. And so that kind of introduced them to.
It's a good foundation. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my 10-year-old, he was like 7 at the time. I would always hear him like doing like,
Yeah.
just like always really rhythmic patterns. And like one day
You're like, you're the drummer.
I did. I was like, dude, come here. And I sat him down on a drum set and I showed him like to do that same thing and then hit the snare. And he has just got a natural ability for playing drums. And so
That's cool.
The three of them have actually played with me. We did a homeschool convention in Minnesota called the Miche Conference, and we played in front of 1,500 people and did a couple of my songs. And it was really cool because we used to homeschool our kids when we lived in Minnesota. And so it was very inspiring for a lot of families. And
Yeah.
So it was really fun for them. Their very first concert was in front of 1,500 people.
Right. Usually it's in front of 15 people.
Yeah, exactly. So my daughter stuck with piano, and my son then went on to playing guitar, and he plays bass as well. And so
Cool.
he kind of bounces back and forth between what is the need, and then my son, 10-year-old now, he's playing drums, and he's got quite a few of my songs down, which is really great.
That's amazing.
Wow. And then I have 2 more kids, so I have 5 total, and I don't know what they're gonna play. So I'm hoping, like, I would love for them to like get into like playing fiddle and maybe mandolin, and more of the organic instruments, like acoustical style instruments that we could do stuff that's unplugged pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Back in the day, would you have thought you were gonna have 5 kids?
Dude, and I met my wife, I was like, when she asked me how many kids, I said 2, but in my mind thinking I'd be fine with none.
You're like 2 or 0.
You're like, I'm being generous with 2.
You're like, you're like, I feel like 4 is the right answer, so I'm going to go with 2.
That's what it was, too. She said, she's like, she said 4, and I was like, yeah, maybe 2. And so we did wait after 2 for a while. Like, there's a pretty good gap there. So 13, I don't know, he's maybe 14, it's about 4 years.
Yeah.
We waited for having our next. And the 3 was pretty easy. And my wife's like, let's have a 4th. And I can never say no to her because she's just so sweet. And like, she loves kids, and she is a really good mom. So it's easy to say yes to that. And so, and every kid is so unique, and you guys know this, they all have their own uniqueness to them. And they're such a blessing in their own ways. And also, they're also hard in many ways, their own ways too. They all have their own personalities and little things that you got to get to know about them along the way. So
yeah, you just got to let their little freak flag fly, whatever direction it's blowing.
What are their ages?
So we got 15. She's going to actually be 16 in July. That's just crazy to me. 13 coming up this month, going on 14. So I'm confusing you. I'm like, everybody's birthday is like this.
I know.
In this span right now.
Listen,
so,
we feel your pain.
Yeah. So 14 is going to be 10, 6, and 1. No, 3, 1.
So fun.
Yeah. A while ago.
Like a 1-year-old poor guy. Like, come on, bro.
he has older siblings, or they have older siblings. They don't. Yeah. They don't. They do
all the talking for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, a while ago I gave up trying. When people ask the ages of the kids, I gave up.
Oh yeah, do you
nailing
even know
it.
how old they are now?
So I know I'm usually off within a year, but I figure if I rattle them off really quickly, so I'm like, they're like 19, 18, 17, 15, and 10, and I'm like going like this with my finger to make sure I hit 6 of them. Just make sure I hit 6 numbers.
Well, with our big kids, because our big kids are 5 years apart, like, yeah, you're gonna hit somebody's that age.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I just need to know where to start.
I was gonna say, you
think
just
about
need to
how
know
old the
how
oldest one is.
Josiah
Yeah.
is.
He's 20 now.
Yeah, he'll be 21 in October. Yeah, he'll be 21 in October. Not that he's counting or anything.
That's crazy. I remember you bringing him home.
Yeah, because he was born there in Running Springs.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's been that long.
Yeah. Goes by too fast.
Yeah.
It does.
Are any of your kids starting to write any music or venture off into that?
Daughter is really, I'd say she's probably the most like into music. Like she's always playing the piano, always figuring out music, songs. She's a really hard worker. I don't know if she has the natural gift of music, but she really works hard. And and I think eventually she'll find her voice and she'll, find the knack for it. And I think anybody really can. You just got to work hard at it. I would say even for me, I'm not a naturally gifted musician. I think it's just something I loved and stuck with. And so I would always fight, even my voice. It naturally was easy to sing baritone for me, or tenor, a more deeper voice. And I wanted to sound like every, Blink 182 sounding band out there. So even when it comes to folk music, I love singers like Willie Watson and these guys that got this like more nasally, like sounding voice, but I have this baritone voice. And so I've been finding artists along the way that have that sound, and that helps me stay focused in my wheelhouse of where I am vocally. I'm not this guy who can belt out high notes, and I try and do that, but I've learned to adapt into what I'm gifted in, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just such beautiful music. Your voice is perfect. I'm just curious. So like you're talking about the kind of music, having musical talent, but then having the creativity side, like where do you think because I can imagine there can be a musician that's just naturally gifted, right? And they can hear a song and play it. And then, but the creative side of that is kind of, it's different, right? So like, how does that look for you? And you've played with a ton of musicians, different bands. Do you think that creative side, it just kind of, obviously you can develop it and get better at it, but for you, is it something that someone has, like you have the creative ability?
Yeah, I'd say that the natural ability, like somebody who can figure out a song just like that, it has an ear for music. I think that's definitely a gifting. But I think the creative side comes with, a little bit of work. So what I do is do a lot of like object writing, things that keep my mind sharp and focused. And what object writing is like just having a little journal that I'll pick something and say water, and write things that have to do with water. You think of all the sound or the senses. So your smell, the sound, the feeling, and you try to describe water with using all those senses. And it could be any type of water. It could be a swamp, it smells musty, or sound is peaceful, the trickling, using word or verbiage that takes you to that place so you feel like you're in that moment. So songs like Among the Pines from my latest EP, I used a lot of that sensory, to where if you've ever been in like a valley between mountains, you see like the chimney smoke kind of just dwells there especially in the cold months, and you have this smell of like chimneys, and it just feels like winter. You get a sense of like Christmas even, and the smell of pines. And so I just try to describe the setting with using objects and you describe those objects in the best ways you can using all your senses. And so those type of things, I think, invoke creativity and get your mind working. And even when you're not songwriting, if you're looking for ways to create, just describing objects, and that sets you up for the future. And so there's a book called by Pat Pattinson, called Writing Better Lyrics. And that's really where I got that idea from, through the school that I attended. And so we were introduced to that idea. And so that creativity, I think, takes a little bit of work. Obviously, there are people that are just mind-blowingly creative. And I think it's just also taking risk, because the people who are the ones that thought of these ideas just took a risk, the ones that really didn't care what others thought, and did what they felt was good. So I know a lot of even painters and artists. Like I have a friend named Aaron Brown out of Redlands, who's just such a creative painter, and it's really caught on. People are loving his art, and it's so different, so.
It's cool.
But you've always been, since you were a kid, just having that artistic and creative side. What came first? Were you drawing first, or did music come first?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. When I was younger, really young, I wanted to be a cartoonist, an artist. My mom was really cool about that too. She let me actually spray paint my room. when I went through my graffiti stage. I had these.
He's like, keep it on the inside.
She did, yeah. She was like, "You can spray paint your room, just don't do it out on the streets."
Yeah.
Southern California kid,
Right.
and then my friends were too. They were going out and finding walls, and it's just really dumb. I kind of always had this like, I don't know. I had this like conviction not to do that because I don't know. I just thought it was lame. I didn't want to do that, deface somebody's hard-earned work or property.
Right. Space.
Yeah, so I never did, and I was glad my mom let me paint my walls because then I was able to like actually see if I could do it. And so I had these characters, and it was before the time of coronavirus because all my characters had bandanas on their faces.
That meant something very different in Southern California.
Yeah.
In the 90s than it does today.
That was when us white boys were listening to NWA. Like, we
were trying.
Yeah, I can see. I remember meeting your mom, and I remember just being impressed of how encouraging she was with you guys, and like with what your interests and talents were. She was very supportive, and I've seen so many times with kids, and as a parent, it's hard to do this, but when I see a kid that has a natural talent and their parents are able to identify it and then give them that lane to develop it, like we were talking about, it just makes such a difference. I could see with you, I mean, your mom letting you spray paint your room, like there's just not a lot of parents that did that.
Right. Yeah, she was definitely supportive. She would come to most of our concerts and our shows, and it was really a hard time because her and my stepdad at the time were very, they butted heads and a lot of the parenting techniques because she was so supportive. And, my brother would always get in trouble. And we had to go play shows on weekends, and they would try to ground him, or at least my stepdad would try to enforce that.
Right.
I'll be like, just get back here before 5, before he gets back,
Very bad.
So
I love that.
Yeah, so she was just, I don't know, she's always loved our music and stuff that we created together, and still to this day she's very supportive of my music, and is always, send me some more CDs so I can pass them out.
Yeah, I remember her at your shows and recording. You probably have a ton of recordings.
Dude, I have so many, and sadly all my bands are like all on VHS. Totally dates me, but a lot of VHS, and I don't know, maybe I don't wish it was all digital back then. I think people get enough of the digital stuff from now. I mean, it's like, it's easy to over promote or overshare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I probably would have overshared if I had.
If you had easy access to it.
Yeah, I would have for sure.
Are you working right now then on your next album?
Yes and no. I've got some ideas. Originally I wanted to do like an old like hymns rewrite album. So like take like old spirituals and just kind of do all rewrites in that way. But then a lot of the stuff I've been writing in the last few months with Anthony and just on my own is still, I don't know, it could be a whole nother album the way it's heading. And so it's hard to know where to go next with which one I'm going to do. But I always like to release my own stuff versus doing other songs that are written by others. But so I don't know. I don't have it fully planned out yet.
Where's their studio at with Old Bear?
Old Bear's in Batavia, New York. It's just on the suburb of Buffalo, New York. So it's about 30 minutes from Buffalo. And so, but yeah, this quarantine thing is really putting a number on the studio too, because they do record other artists, and not seeing a lot of business coming in right now, which is really hurting the studio.
I bet.
So a lot of engineers are having to find other work, and so it's been pretty sad and difficult on them. But
that's tough.
We're actually, now that I think about it, we're going to do this thing. It's going to be a voice memos album with all of the artists, and we're each covering each other's song. we just did this recently with a video, and we covered another Old Bear artist song that we were signed.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I just did Wolves in Sheep's Clothes by an artist from Old Bear his name's Eric Lee Brumley. And so I'm going to do that one to a voice memo on my phone. We're only recording to iPhones and recording it, sending it in, and then we'll master it and get the quality up a little bit more.
Cool.
Death Cab for Cutie actually just did this recently too. They just did they did a voice memos album where it was only recorded to iPhones. So it's kind of like the new hip thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So this artist from Old Bear, Romer's his name. He's from Germany, and so he thought of the idea. He's like, dude, we should do this. And so we're going to submit a cover and then the original song that we're going to release. So I have a song called Thief in the Night that I'm going to add to that as well. So be expecting a more lo-fi recording album from Old Bear Records in the next probably 6 months or so.
It's cool. It's so interesting to see how all the creatives are pivoting right now. Like there's a ton of photographers that are doing FaceTime photo sessions. Have you seen those?
I haven't seen the photography ones, no.
Which the first time I saw it, I was like, what are you even saying? You're doing a photo session over FaceTime? And they're just like instructing the person on how to set up their phone and then giving them like they're low quality, but I think it's so interesting. I think it's going to be this like huge creative burst that's going to come after this, because we've all had to like use like different parts of our creativity to make it happen during this time. So it's
super interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And we're seeing a lot of really cool stuff coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're also seeing the guys that are very gifted in technology blossoming right now. It's like, so I don't know. I've been having to take on that role as well. And I don't like getting technical. I just want to sing. So having to figure out what cameras work the best and at what resolution should I be doing it at and what microphone works best. It's like, I have to do all that for my current job. So it's pretty difficult and I don't love it, but I love to see the final product and go, wow, I actually did that, So it is cool.
So figure out with the next album, one of those two directions, do you have kind of a time frame? Like, are you required by the label to put something out, or how does that relationship work?
No, we don't really have much requirements other than to have a presence to support each other and to, try to just put out a live video here and there, play shows, invite each other to along the road. Like we got some guys like Jonas Woods. That's all he does is travel and play shows. So as he's touring across from coast to coast, he'll invite us, come play some shows with him when he hits our states. And that kind of stuff. But as far as albums, that's really up to us. And so my goal is to release a new album every 2 years. So I did 2018 with Less Traveled Road, Among the Pines 2020. They've all hit January. So 24th of January 2018 was Less Traveled Road, and the 26th. So those are always Fridays, because that's when music releases, is on Fridays typically. And so I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably going to be 2022, and I'll probably hit the studio in 2021 and start, producing the album. And so we'll see what happens. But I'm definitely anxious and excited too, especially because this last one was an EP. It's only 6 songs, and
Outside of obviously COVID and what's going on now, what does touring usually look like for you?
I had some like little shows here and there. Well, not little. There was a couple pretty good sized ones that were supposed to happen before my tour this summer. So I had one in June, and then I was hoping to go in April to do some fundraising at a bigger church that I did really well at this last summer. But I have a tour lined up in August, which hasn't been postponed or canceled yet. So I'm just like really, really praying and holding out that it'll happen. So I'm doing a festival. That? So that one will be, so hopefully we'll do one in Ogden, Utah. That's the only one I'm kind of holding off on.
My grandparents are totally from Ogden, Utah.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
funny.
Never even been there. I just put
Haven't?
out, I put out a thing because I was like, it was along the route that we're taking. And I was
Yeah.
like, that looks like a really cool area. So
It's cool.
I
Yeah.
put out a little message in their community board saying, hey, if anybody's looking to book a concert or do something
Yeah.
with my style, and immediately got hit up by a bunch of people that were like, dude, we love what you do. And so I had like 3 different opportunities. So just kind of
That's
waiting
cool.
to see which one develops the best. But the rest of the concerts are booked and ready to go. So Nebraska, Iowa, like 3 in Minnesota and Fargo, and then heading back towards the West Coast to Glacier National Park area. There's some family friends that want to book us at their church up there. And so I'm kind of
That's
excited
awesome.
to be up there. And then Coeur d'Alene, and then one in Spokane area as well.
Yeah.
So
That's
it'll be on the road about 3 weeks, and probably, I think it's like 8 or 9 concerts along the way. So we try to do them no more than 2 to 3 weeks, because we do have so much to deal with the kids and family life.
Yeah.
Are you playing with other musicians or just you acoustic?
Yeah, there'll be a few in Minnesota, especially because I lived there for so long. I have a lot of connections and friends, and actually, the girl that sang on this album, Legend Ozora, she signed to Old Bear Records as well, and I've known her since she was like 12. She used to attend the youth group where I was leading, and she'd always have her little backpack guitar, and just one of those kids that I knew was going to be something special one day. And sure enough, she just took off, and I introduced her to the label, and they ended up signing her, and she did her first EP this last year, and releasing her new album just coming up shortly here. So, but
That's
she's
cool.
going to sing. She sang on my album, did harmonies for it, and she's going to join me for probably 3 of the concerts in Minnesota. And then some guys, actually, one of them, I got the job out there in Minnesota. He's from Big Bear, my buddy Josh Poole, and he used to play in one of the punk rock bands we always played with called Norpain. And so he plays guitar with me, and plays slide guitar and stuff when I'm playing out there. And then a few other guys that are jumping in that are just incredible musicians. So, but I'm really excited. We're playing a festival, and that's one I'm hoping doesn't get canceled. And that's with, one of the big name Christian artists, Chris Tomlin. So, it should be like, I don't know, probably 5,000-6,000 people that are going to be there just for that show alone.
Yeah, we're kind of in uncharted territory right now with all that.
Yeah,
Nobody knows.
Know. Yeah. They've kind of put out a few things saying they're still on, encouraging people to buy their tickets, and but there's something new here in Washington. It seems like, and I know California too. It's like false assurance, and you're like, to give it 2 weeks and we'll be back and we'll be opening stuff, but they're just not.
Yeah.
So
well, if that Ogden show happens, we'll have to go out there.
Yes.
We go to Utah a couple times a year, see family. So
if you need a drummer, I actually have 2 brothers that live in Utah that are professional drummers.
Yeah.
Huh. What's one of the drummers' names? Maybe it's the guy I've been talking to because he's a drummer.
They're in Salt Lake. Will McCutcheon and Christian McCutcheon are their names.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's the guy's name.
Yeah, Will has.
He kind of has red hair. That's why.
Oh, how funny! They both actually have dreadlocks currently.
Oh wow.
Both of my drummer brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, Will has like dreadlocks
like down
past
to
his waist.
Butt. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He's in a committed relationship with the drummer.
That's rad.
Yeah. Cool guys though, great musicians.
Both snowboarders, and Christian actually still works at the snowboard resort during the winter when it's open.
Yeah, they would have fit right into that group in Running Springs back in the late 90s. They would have fit right in.
Yeah, I'll let you know for sure if that one ends up happening.
Yeah, we'll come out.
Yep. It would not take much for me to jump in the car and go.
Well, dude, thanks so much, man, for jumping on. Obviously, selfishly, I wanted to catch up and hang out, but it's just...
You're letting the rest of us in on your personal conversation.
Everybody else gets to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
But
glad to be here.
So where people are interested in your music, where can they find it? What are the different outlets they can go to?
Yeah, so everything is available, iTunes. You could stream it, and on Spotify and Apple Music. It's pretty much everywhere digitally. If you want a physical copy, you can go to ryanclairmusic.com. And so I have CDs available for both of my albums. Got some merchandise there too, some shirts and hopefully some new hats and stuff coming up soon here. But yeah, you know, my Instagram is Ryan Clair Music, and my Facebook, Ryan Clair Music as well. Those are great places to connect with me and keep up to date with what's happening. So my website is also current with like events and shows that I'm doing. And so those are the best and greatest places to keep up.
Yeah. And hopefully once we're allowed to and shows are happening, you can come down this way.
Yeah.
When's the last time you were here?
We went there last summer.
Okay.
And that was when we were, you know, and it's so hard when we go to California because we have so many family and friends that are like all fighting for our time. I feel like I've lost friends over the years because
I know
when I
people
go there,
get so offended. That's
Yeah,
how it
they're
is
like,
when I go to Utah.
yeah, it's just so it's really hard like to try to find the time to really connect with everybody. So we've allotted like amount of times for even family. We're like, you know, we'll stay with you 2 days, and then we got to get home. But
When you got
it was a
kids.
great trip last summer. We especially spent a lot of time like in Northern California, up in Mammoth and you know, Bishop. That's where my dad's side of the family is, and it was just so beautiful. That's where I was that's where I wrote Among the Pines, was up in Mammoth area.
Nice.
Cool.
So people always say, you know, there's no pines in Washington. And I'm like, there is, but it's not like, you know, it's more fur. I didn't write the song here, people.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break, people.
Well, it's not like
Yeah.
you've never seen one before.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, dude, thanks so much, man. All the best. Obviously, we'll keep in touch and look forward to more music, and can't say thanks enough.
I appreciate it. And it's so good catching up and just seeing you. How it would sound or work over here, but I could do a live song if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I could do I Believe in Something More if you wanted to put that on there.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
So if you wanted to record that, we could.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't sound
Yeah, you're still recording.
if it doesn't sound good, we can, you know, nix it out.
Cool.
Let me see if I can reach with my headphones on and get this guitar. All right.
I love this song.
All right. What is the point of life at all? We're born and we died and there was no more. Why don't we love and we laugh and we cry? This is the only and the rest was a lie. 'Cause I will believe there's something more. It's a path that I know we all choose to take. As a preacher man will someday will say, but what if the road seems tougher to find, and to lose what you love with God on your side? 'Cause I still believe there's something more. 'Cause I believe I will see you again. My faith is small, I'll keep pressing in. Until the time I hear the angels call, the old trumpet sound, make sense of it all. 'Cause I still believe there's something more. Heavier things weigh down your soul. It's hard to know the right way to go. But choosing to love means choosing to lean on the faith that you feel, but you can't always see. 'Cause I still believe there's something more. 'Cause I believe I will see you again. My faith is small, I'll keep pressing in.
Till the time I hear the angels call, the old trumpet sound makes sense of it all. 'Cause I still believe in something more. There's sorrow in the waiting, looking for answers to explain why you had to go so early. But I'll hold on to hope and say, 'cause I believe I'll see you again. My faith is small, keep pressing in. Until the time I hear the angels call, the old trumpet sound makes sense of it all. 'Cause I still believe, 'cause I still believe, 'cause I still believe in something more.
Man,
So
that was
good.
incredible.
Yay.
I don't think we're ever going to be able to top another podcast episode in the way we ended ever again. That was incredible, man.
So good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing and letting us use that before, and that's my favorite. Love all your stuff, but when we were looking at one of your songs and went through your catalog, we played that one and we looked at each other like, yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song, there's just such a special meaning to it with, because we had lost a child to miscarriage at 20 weeks. My grandmother is really a person that played a huge part in my life that, is where I am today is because of her, and she was somebody during that time when I just started songwriting too, who I was sharing my songs with as a kid.
Really?
And so she was the one really saying, just so encouraging. And even as a kid who was so like full of himself and prideful, like she was somebody that was just so loving and just, I don't know, special. And then a big part, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, she lost at night. He was 19 years old. And so that's another part of somebody who played a role in this song. So, so it's just such a special song to me and to my wife too. So I'm so blessed and encouraged that you guys like it. So
We love it.
Love it, man.
awesome.
All right, dude. Thanks so much again. We'll talk soon, but thanks for jumping on.
Keep in touch. Look forward to the episode.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
See you guys.